Strike Fighter engines. Senator Bayh's compromise amendment continues our support for competition for the Joint Strike Fighter engine and restores funding for the Marine Corps helicopters that I know a number of my colleagues are concerned about. From my understanding of what happened here is that in the Defense Committee, Armed Services Committee, Senator Bayh was concerned that the committee did not have money in the budget for competition for the Joint Strike Fighter. As a result of that, he moved to amend and took money away from the helicopters that Senator Lieberman is so concerned about. And today we're here because the senator from Connecticut wants to restore that money for those helicopters. And at the same time, those of us that are concerned about competition would like to see the money in there so that we can continue competition for the Joint Strike Fighter. As most of you know, I'm a former governor and mayor who's been an ardent champion of fiscal responsibility and total quality management in government. And I'm not a Johnny-come-lately to this whole business of efficiency in terms of our defense budget. In 1990, the Department of Defense Acquisition Management, since that time, has been on the GAO's high-risk list. And that's why in my capacity as chair and now ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight of Government Management, I strongly supported reforms at the Defense Department that address contracting weaknesses and promote good business practices to support our men and women in uniform. I want everyone to understand this is not the F-22. This is about competition, fiscal responsibility, and good government management. When I came to the Senate, I remembered Dwight David Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex. Well, I must say that since I've been a United States Senator, he had it wrong. It's the military-industrial congressional complex. And if you watch how things are done here on the floor of the United States Senate, a lot of it's got to do with protecting the businesses in our state, even though in some instances it's not in the best interest of our country. And I'm proud to say that in spite of the fact that in my state we lost about 500 jobs, I voted to eliminate the F-22. And that's what we should see more of here. But too often, when we make our decisions here, it's got more to do with the contractors in our respective states and the jobs than it has to do with what's in the best interest of the country or what's fiscally responsible. And all of us, I think, should be concerned about it. I'm going to leave here at the end of next year, but it seems to me that if we don't start paying more attention to that, we're going to continue to be in trouble. In testimony before the House Armed Services Committee this past May, the Government Accountability Office stated that competition for the Joint Strike Fighter engine will yield long-term cost savings for taxpayers. Now, does that mean it's not going to cost a little more at the front end because you're going to have more than one company competing for that engine? Of course it's going to cost a little bit more. But that testimony that GAO gave cited an example of engine competition for the F-16. Okay, we had competition for the F-16. And let's remember that this Joint Strike Fighter is going to be the fighter for all of the federal agencies. It's going to be with us probably for the next 25 or 30 years. And that testimony for the F-16 said it reduced engine costs for the F-16 by over 20%. In other words, by putting a little money up front and having competition between the companies that wanted to do the engine, we, over the contract, saved 20% on that. And, Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the GAO's full testimony be entered into the record. Now, GAO's...
Without objection.
It's quite a report, and for those that are really interested in the subject, I ask them to read this or have their staff look at it. It's a Joint Strike Fighter, strong risk management essential. Its program enters most challenging phase. It's really interesting, by the way, that the company that was originally chosen to do this has had cost overruns even in the beginning. and the two companies that were competing with them have been on budget and on time. For the record, by the way, it's right here in this GAO report. All you got to do is read the report. It's there. Now, let me read what the report says. A competitive strategy has the potential for savings equal to or exceeding that amount across the life cycle of the engine. Prior experience indicates that it's reasonable to assume that competition on the Joint Strike Fighter engine program could yield savings. As a result, we remain confident that competitive pressures could yield enough savings to offset the upfront cost of development over the Joint Strike Fighters program life. Let me repeat that again. It says, as a result, we remain confident that competitive pressures could yield enough savings to offset the upfront cost of development over the Joint Strike Fighters program life. Most of us understand competition. We have laws against, antitrust, trying to make sure that one company doesn't get an advantage over another. And so I think most of my colleagues understand competition brings out the best and the lowest price. Madam President, the GAO testimony goes on to address the impact competition has on quality of product and incentives to perform. Quote, our prior work, along with studies by the Department of Defense and others, indicate there are a number of non-financial benefits that may result from competition, including better performance, increased reliability, and improved contractor responsiveness. I just heard the senator from Arizona speak eloquently about all of the overruns and the expenses and everything else about it. And if he were here, I'd say to him, hey, what we want to do is have some competition on this engine so we get the best price, we get the best quality, we get the most responsiveness. Now, Madam President, we don't need the GAO to confirm common sense. We all know that, again, competition leads to lower cost, improved performance, increased reliability, and helps to keep our contractors honest. Without a competitive engine, over 90% of our fighter aircraft will be powered by one engine by 2030. Think about it. One company will have that contract. Giving an extraordinary large contract to a single vendor without competition, I think, is reckless and irresponsible. Our government has an obligation to keep our contractors honest, and the surest way to achieve that honesty is through competition. I urge my colleagues to support the compromise amendment that preserves competitive sourcing for the Joint Strike Fighter engine. We have an opportunity. I can understand that the senator from Connecticut was upset because we took money to maintain the competition out of the helicopters. What Senator Byes tried to do is to come up with an amendment that will restore the money so we can buy the helicopters, take care of that situation, and at the same time maintain competition on the Joint Strike Fighter. I urge my colleagues to really study this issue. And please, if you have a chance, you or your staff ought to look at this report by the GAO. I think it substantiates the reasons why we're so ardent in terms of our support for competition for this Joint Strike Fighter. I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Madam President, I yield myself such time as I need from the time allotted.